Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan had just wrapped up a press tour in Miami, and all he wanted was some privacy. After years of being under the constant scrutiny of the media, the relentless spotlight that followed him everywhere, he was craving normalcy for once. He needed a place to work out, a private gym where he could stay focused without any distractions. It wasn't a request for the rich or famous, it was just something Michael Jordan, like any other athlete, needed to stay in shape. Jordan found a private athletic club that seemed to be just what he was looking for. Tucked away in a quiet corner of Miami, it was exclusive, peaceful, and, most importantly, not a place where he was constantly hounded by cameras or fans. He thought it would be the perfect spot to get some work in, recharge, and do what he loved without the endless noise of public life. His team called ahead to schedule the session, and everything was set. When Jordan arrived at the athletic club that morning, there was an almost serene atmosphere. The marble floors gleamed, the sound of tennis balls bouncing echoed through the halls, and the faint clink of weights from the gym area created a familiar and comforting rhythm. He could already feel the weight of the world slipping off his shoulders. All he had to do was work out, focus on his training, and not worry about anything else. But from the moment he stepped into the gym, things didn't go as planned. The young staffer behind the desk barely looked up when Jordan walked in. He was too busy scrolling through his phone, probably unaware of the legendary figure standing in front of him. Jordan smiled politely, ready to introduce himself, but before he could even speak, the staffer cut him off. "Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to leave," the staffer said, his eyes still glued to the phone screen. Jordan blinked in surprise. "Excuse me," he asked, trying to keep his tone calm. "I said you need to leave. You're impersonating someone." "We don't allow people to pretend to be other people here," the staffer responded without looking up. Jordan's smile faded. His mind raced. Was this a joke? Was someone playing pranks on him? The staffer finally looked up, his expression unbothered, as if Jordan was just another guy trying to get past security by pretending to be Michael Jordan. "I'm serious," the staffer said, a little more annoyed now. "I've seen all kinds of people try to get in pretending to be someone else. But you're not fooling me. This isn't the NBA, and you're definitely not Michael Jordan. If you don't leave now, I'll have to call security." Jordan's initial disbelief turned into amusement, then frustration. He had been through it all: championships, global fame, documentaries about his career, and yet here he was, being asked to leave a gym for pretending to be himself. The irony of it all wasn't lost on him. He looked around, hoping someone would intervene, but the gym remained calm, everyone seemingly unaware of the awkward encounter happening right at the front desk. Taking a deep breath, Jordan spoke again, this time quieter, trying to remain patient. "I am Michael Jordan," he said, his voice carrying a level of calm that could only come from years of handling situations far more intense than this one. The staffer stared at him for a moment before shaking his head. "Yeah, right. I'm not buying it. Get out. Now." For a second, Jordan wondered if this was some sort of prank. But then he realized no one else in the gym was even looking his way. The moment felt absurd. He had won 6 NBA titles, been the face of Nike, and was one of the most recognizable athletes in the world, yet he was being treated like a common imposter. The staffer's insistence on not recognizing him made the moment even more surreal. With a mix of disbelief and quiet indignation, Jordan nodded slowly. "All right," he said, trying to regain some composure. "But I'm not leaving just like that." The staffer shot a quick glance up at him, clearly not caring about the situation. "If you're really MJ, then you wouldn't mind leaving, would you?" Jordan stood there for a moment, his mind spinning. He could feel the eyes of the few remaining gymgoers on him now. A few murmurs began to spread, but the staffer was resolute. Michael Jordan, the living legend, was being kicked out of a gym because a young staffer refused to recognize him. For a second, Jordan almost walked away. He dealt with far more pressing matters in his career than some mistake in a gym. But something inside him snapped. Maybe it was the years of being underestimated. Maybe it was the frustration of constantly being treated as something less than human. Whatever it was, Jordan wasn't going to let this slide. Not now. "All right," he said again, but this time with more resolve in his voice. "You're going to regret this." The staffer shrugged, clearly unconcerned. "I'll regret nothing if you don't leave." Jordan stood there for a few more seconds, assessing his options. The staffer, still nonchalant, was busy typing something into the computer. Jordan's eyes narrowed. This was ridiculous. As he turned to leave, he realized just how deep his irritation had run. This wasn't just about a mistake. It was about pride, about recognition. He had been through so much to get to this point in his life. To be kicked out of a private gym in Miami, of all places, because someone couldn't recognize him, that was the last straw. But instead of walking away defeated, Michael Jordan had already decided what came next. He would not only return to this gym, but he would make sure no one ever doubted who he was ever again. The plan started to form in his mind. He would get his revenge. But it wouldn't be petty. It would be something far more satisfying, something that sent a message to anyone who ever doubted him again. Jordan wouldn't just make the staffer regret his decision. He would make sure the entire building did. He would make them feel what it was like to underestimate the man who had conquered basketball. The next day, Jordan returned with his lawyers. The gym's owner had no idea what was coming. Jordan's mission was clear. Not only was he going to buy the building, but he was going to put his name on it. It would be his. The gym that once kicked him out would now bear his name. And that young staffer? He would get a lesson in respect, one that he'd never forget. As Jordan walked into the gym the next day, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about making a statement. No one, no matter who they were, was going to treat him like a joke again. This was Michael Jordan, and his legacy wasn't just on the court. It was everywhere. The next morning, Michael Jordan woke up early, the events of the day before still fresh in his mind. He had always prided himself on not backing down from a challenge, and this was no different. He had been kicked out of a gym, for God's sake. Not just any gym, but a private athletic club in Miami where the staff didn't even recognize him. It wasn't just an insult to his pride, it was a slap in the face. And in Jordan's world, a slap in the face needed to be answered. He got on the phone with his lawyers first thing. This wasn't a matter of whether he could handle the situation, it was about sending a message. He wasn't going to let some young staffer who didn't know the difference between a basketball icon and a guy off the street treat him like this. The message wasn't just for the staffer, but for anyone who thought they could dismiss him without consequences. He had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and fought through more challenges than most people could even imagine. This was going to be his way of saying, never again. The lawyers got to work immediately. Jordan had the connections, the influence, and the resources to make things happen quickly. In the span of a few hours, they were drafting up documents for the acquisition of the entire building. He had already done his research. The gym wasn't owned by a massive corporation or some untouchable conglomerate, it was privately owned by a group of investors. And Jordan knew exactly how to handle them. By noon, Jordan had a team of legal experts on the ground, making their way to the gym. He wasn't concerned about the details. His lawyers were more than capable of handling that. All he wanted was the deed. He wanted that gym, and he wanted it with a name on the front, Michael Jordan. This was about more than just owning property. It was about proving a point, about making sure that no one ever again doubted who he was or what he had accomplished. Jordan couldn't help but smirk as he thought about the young staffer from the day before. He had no idea what he was dealing with. Jordan had faced far worse critics in his life, but none of them had been as bold as this kid. For a moment, Jordan almost felt bad for the guy. Almost. But when you mess with Michael Jordan's name, you pay the price. By the time Jordan arrived at the gym the next morning, everything was already set in motion. His lawyers had arranged a meeting with the building's owners, and the deal was nearly complete. Jordan walked into the facility with a calm demeanor, but inside, he was feeling the satisfaction of knowing that this was going to be the last time anyone disrespected him like that. The gym was quiet when he entered. It was early, just before the usual rush of members, and there was only one staffer at the front desk. He looked up as Jordan approached and froze. Jordan knew what was coming next. The staffer recognized him now, but it was too late. "Mr. Jordan, I didn't know it was you yesterday," the staffer stammered, clearly trying to save face. "I'm really sorry about what happened. I didn't mean." Jordan cut him off with a wave of his hand. There was no need for apologies. They both knew that an apology wouldn't change anything now. "Save it," Jordan said, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable authority. "I'm not here for that. But I have something you need to hear." The staffer's eyes grew wide, confused. "What do you mean, sir?" Jordan looked around the gym, his eyes scanning the space with a slight air of indifference. "I'll make this simple," he continued. "You'll see soon enough. But the gym? It's mine now." The staffer blinked, trying to process what he just heard. "What?" Jordan smiled, and his eyes narrowed as he pulled out the document from his briefcase. "I've just bought the building. It's all mine now. And by the way," he said, lowering his voice, "I'm putting my name on it. Michael Jordan's Gym." The staffer stood frozen, unable to form words. He hadn't believed Jordan the first time he'd walked in. And now, this. It felt like a bad dream. But this was no dream. It was real. Jordan wasn't done yet. He motioned toward the back of the gym. "Tell the owner I'm here to finalize everything. If they want to keep the building running, they'll be dealing with me from now on." The staffer's face paled as he realized the weight of the situation. He quickly excused himself and ran to fetch the owners. Jordan stayed where he was, letting the tension build. He wasn't in any rush. This was his moment, the culmination of a plan that had started the moment he'd been kicked out the day before. When the owners arrived, Jordan greeted them with a firm handshake. They looked more nervous than Jordan had ever seen anyone. It didn't take long before they got down to business. The gym wasn't just his for the taking. Jordan made sure to lock down everything in his favor. It wasn't just about the property, it was about control. It was about having the final say in everything that happened in this building from now on. But what struck Jordan most was their willingness to fold so quickly. They didn't push back. They didn't argue. They knew who he was. They knew they couldn't fight him. So, the negotiations were brief. Before long, Jordan had his signature on the documents, and the gym was officially his. But what was really satisfying wasn't the acquisition, it was the statement that came with it. This wasn't about buying real estate, it was about asserting dominance. It was about showing people that no one, not even a young staffer, could ever question Michael Jordan's legacy. Jordan wasn't just a basketball player. He was a force to be reckoned with. And now, he had the deed to prove it. As he walked out of the gym, his phone buzzed. It was a message from one of his lawyers. "The deal is sealed. The gym is yours." Jordan smirked to himself. It had been easy. Too easy, almost. But that's how it always was when you were Michael Jordan. Things just fell into place. But as he drove away from the gym, Jordan knew that this wasn't the end. It was just another chapter in his ongoing story. This moment was just a small victory in the grand scheme of things, a footnote in his legacy. But it was a satisfying one. It was a reminder that, even off the court, he still knew how to make an impact. And as for the young staffer who had made the mistake of kicking him out, he'd have to live with that mistake for the rest of his life. For Michael Jordan, this was just business. But for the gym, it was a lesson they would never forget. The following morning, after signing the deal, Michael Jordan sat in his car, looking out at the gym that was now his. He had done it, not just the business side of it, but the message he had sent. His competitors, his critics, everyone who thought they could underestimate him, now knew what it meant to mess with Michael Jordan. But the feeling of victory wasn't as fulfilling as he expected. It was just another reminder that even though he'd achieved so much, there were always new battles to face. Jordan stepped out of the car and walked into his newly acquired gym, the door chiming as he entered. The air was still, almost too quiet. There was a sharp contrast between this and the full-blown energy of a crowded arena. Yet, there was an underlying tension in the space. People inside the gym didn't know how to react to his sudden ownership. Most of them had no idea who he was to begin with, but now the reality of him owning the gym was starting to sink in. As he walked through the halls, Jordan could feel eyes on him, curious whispers spreading like wildfire. He didn't mind the attention. In fact, it felt like a power he hadn't tapped into in a while. But this time, it wasn't the usual kind of attention he was used to. The kind that had once come from his basketball prowess, the respect from players and fans alike. This was different. This was more personal. It was as if he had entered a different world entirely, a world where no one cared about his accolades or his legendary career, but now that world had changed. It was his world now. The gym staff, most of whom had been there long before Jordan's acquisition, were standing behind the counter, cautiously watching him. The young staffer who had kicked him out a couple of days ago wasn't there. Jordan didn't want to start a confrontation with the others, but he couldn't shake the image of that young man, so quick to dismiss him. Jordan walked up to the desk where the manager was working. She was a middle-aged woman with short, dark hair and a no-nonsense look about her. She was busy reviewing some paperwork, but as Jordan stood in front of her, she looked up, visibly startled. "Mr. Jordan," she said, her voice almost hesitant. "I didn't know you were coming in today." "I thought I'd drop by," Jordan said with a grin. "There's a few things I'd like to discuss about the future of this place." The manager stood up quickly. She had clearly been caught off guard, and Jordan could sense the discomfort in her demeanor. He didn't care about that. What interested him more was seeing how they all handled this new dynamic. "The gym's been under new management for less than 24 hours, she said cautiously. "I'm sure there are a few things you'd like to know." Jordan crossed his arms, leaning on the desk. "I'm not here to talk about the business side of things yet. I want to know who I'm dealing with here. What's the vibe of the place? What kind of people work here? What kind of culture are we creating?" The manager looked at him, confused. "I'm not sure I understand." Jordan didn't flinch. "I'm talking about the atmosphere. I'm not just here to make money. This gym's going to represent something bigger than just fitness. It'll be a place for top athletes, for the community, for people who want to learn and grow. We're going to make this place special." He paused for a moment, then continued. "And that means we need to set some standards. I'm not just here to run a business. I'm here to make an impact." The manager nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She was still clearly processing the fact that Jordan, the Michael Jordan, was standing in front of her, talking about transforming the gym into something more. Something that meant more. But there was hesitation in her eyes. She had been working at the gym for years, and change wasn't easy for someone in her position. Jordan took one last look around before turning to leave the front desk area. "I'll be around." "Let's get to work," he said, his voice firm. The gym wasn't going to change overnight, but Jordan was ready to put in the work. This wasn't just about having his name on a building. He wanted to build a culture, create an environment where athletes could push each other to be better, and maybe even give back to the next generation in ways that mattered. Jordan wasn't looking to just sit back and collect profits. He was about setting a standard, and he wasn't going to settle for anything less. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Jordan was constantly at the gym, overseeing renovations, meeting with trainers, and pushing his vision forward. He wanted everything to reflect who he was and what he had become. The walls were decorated with images of iconic moments from his career, not for bragging rights, but to inspire those who came through the doors. There were new basketball courts, improved workout areas, and state-of-the-art equipment. Every detail was meticulously planned, every choice made with purpose. Jordan's influence was felt almost immediately. The staff, now under his direction, worked tirelessly to create the kind of environment he envisioned. Trainers started to run sessions designed to push athletes not just physically, but mentally. Jordan's philosophy on discipline and work ethic started to trickle down, shaping the attitudes of everyone involved. This wasn't a gym for amateurs, it was a place for excellence. The atmosphere around the gym began to shift. More and more people started hearing about the new changes, and word quickly spread. Members of the local community were intrigued, curious to see how this change would affect the gym. Some had heard the rumors that Michael Jordan himself now owned the place. The gym became a hub for athletes of all backgrounds, from those looking to improve their skills to people wanting to get in better shape. But Jordan wasn't interested in bringing in just anyone. He wanted people who were serious, driven, and ready to put in the work. He didn't just bring in high-level NBA talent. Jordan made it a point to work with younger athletes, too. He believed that the true impact of the gym wasn't in the elite players it produced, but in the way it nurtured the next generation of basketball players and fitness enthusiasts. The young staffer who had kicked him out now worked closely with the new gym staff, a quiet reminder of how far things had come. Jordan made a point to talk with athletes of all levels. He didn't act like a celebrity who was too good for the regular members of the gym. He was present, he gave advice, pushed players in training sessions, and shared wisdom from his legendary career. His approach wasn't about being flashy. It was about showing up every day and doing the work, just like he had done his entire life. In those moments, Jordan wasn't a billionaire, a retired NBA legend, or a global icon. He was just another man in the gym, pushing through the same sweat, the same exhaustion, and the same focus that made him one of the greatest athletes in history. That was the legacy he wanted to leave behind, not just trophies or records, but a culture of hard work, dedication, and excellence. The more he saw the transformation happening, the more Jordan realized that this place meant something far greater than just a gym. It was a symbol of resilience, of taking control of your destiny, and showing the world that no matter what had happened before, you could always bounce back. And in the case of the gym, it was Jordan showing the world that even when you're underestimated, even when someone doubts who you are, you have the power to turn it around and make things right. The young staffer, who had once seen Jordan as just another person trying to sneak into the gym, now saw him as a symbol of greatness, a reminder that you could always rise, no matter the odds. And Michael Jordan, as always, was proving that with relentless determination, anything was possible. The gym had transformed in ways that Michael Jordan couldn't have predicted. It wasn't just the physical improvements or the state-of-the-art equipment, it was the culture that had begun to take shape. The athletes that filled the space weren't just there for a workout, they were there to become better versions of themselves. Jordan had always believed in pushing past limits, both on and off the court, and now he was instilling that same mindset in the people who trained at his gym. He spent nearly every day at the gym, working alongside the trainers, engaging with the athletes, and doing what he did best, leading by example. His presence wasn't just about his fame, it was about setting a standard. And even though he was no longer playing professionally, the intensity and discipline he brought were felt by everyone around him. The staff, the athletes, even the casual gym members, all of them knew the reputation Jordan carried. They saw the way he worked, the way he pushed through exhaustion, and how he held himself accountable for everything. Jordan's standards were high, but he didn't expect anything less from others. If anything, his presence was a challenge. A challenge to anyone who thought they could just show up and put in minimal effort. The gym had become a reflection of who he was, relentless, focused, and always striving to be better. One afternoon, Jordan walked into the gym to find a group of young players standing around, laughing and joking between sets. It was a normal scene, but something about the energy felt off. They weren't taking their training seriously. Jordan watched them for a few moments before walking over to the group. "Hey," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. "You guys here to play basketball, or are you just here to kill time?" The group fell silent, a few of the players exchanging nervous glances. Jordan didn't wait for an answer. He pointed to the basketball court at the far end of the gym. "Let's see what you've got. Come on. Right now." The players reluctantly followed him. Jordan could tell they were more interested in their socializing than actually putting in the work, so he decided to remind them what it meant to be serious about the game. He called out drills that forced them to focus on their footwork, ball handling, and conditioning. It wasn't long before the lighthearted atmosphere shifted to one of tension. The players were gasping for air, their muscles burning, but Jordan wasn't letting up. He pushed them harder, making them go through the drills faster, more intensely. After what felt like an hour, he called for a break. The players stood in a huddle, exhausted, and Jordan stood before them, watching their reactions. "This isn't a game," he said. "If you're not ready to put in the work, then you're wasting everyone's time, including your own. This gym, this place, it's here to help you get better. But if you don't take it seriously, don't waste your breath." Jordan wasn't angry, but there was no mistaking the edge in his voice. His eyes scanned the group. They were young, eager, and clearly used to getting by on raw talent, but that wasn't enough anymore. If they wanted to improve, they had to understand that the game didn't care about potential, it cared about work ethic, focus, and consistency. He paused for a moment, letting the words sink in. If you want to be good, you have to want it more than anyone else in the room. And that means putting in the work, even when it's hard. One of the players, a tall shooting guard, spoke up. "I get it, MJ. But we were just messing around. We didn't think it would be that intense." Jordan looked at him with a slight smile. "It's always intense. It's just up to you whether or not you're ready for it. The choice is yours." He turned and walked away, leaving the group behind him, silently processing what had just happened. They wouldn't forget that day. And neither would he. For Jordan, it wasn't about teaching a few drills, it was about instilling a mindset that would stay with the players long after they left the gym. The work they put in today would pay off tomorrow, but only if they were willing to embrace the grind. Jordan spent the next few days in meetings with the gym's management team. As the owner, he had made a lot of decisions quickly, but now it was time to set the long-term vision. He wasn't just about physical performance, he wanted to make sure this gym became a place where athletes could grow mentally as well. To achieve that, he needed a structure that encouraged both discipline and freedom to express oneself on the court. It had to be a place where talent didn't go to waste, where every athlete knew they were capable of more than they realized. One key decision was the creation of a mentorship program for younger players. Jordan wanted to bring in some of the most respected trainers, both from the NBA and college levels, to provide one-on-one guidance. It wasn't about getting the best players into the gym, it was about giving everyone the tools they needed to improve, no matter where they started. As the gym began to attract more members, Jordan's vision of making it a hub for athletes, trainers, and fans began to take shape. There were a lot of skeptics in the community. Some didn't think a place like this could really take off. But the more Jordan worked with his team, the more the vision came to life. He saw the value in turning this space into something bigger than just a gym. It had to be an institution, a place that provided structure, mentorship, and, most importantly, opportunity. Over time, the gym began to see a steady stream of athletes signing up for training sessions and mentorship programs. And as word spread about Jordan's involvement, the interest only grew. People wanted to be a part of something bigger. They didn't just want to work out, they wanted to learn from one of the greatest players of all time. Jordan didn't shy away from the responsibility that came with this role. He showed up every day, watching training sessions, offering tips, and pushing the athletes who needed it. For him, it wasn't about taking the credit, it was about giving back to a game that had given him everything. He wasn't just teaching them basketball, he was teaching them how to push past their limits, how to keep going when the odds seemed insurmountable. Despite his commitment, not everything was smooth sailing. There were growing pains. There were players who resisted the changes Jordan tried to make, trainers who questioned his approach, and moments where Jordan's relentless drive didn't align with the team's more cautious pace. But that didn't matter to him. He knew how to win. He knew how to build something that would last. And he wasn't afraid of a little resistance. The gym started to draw in more serious athletes, from local high school prospects to seasoned professionals looking for a place to improve. There were some moments when Jordan watched a young player take a shot in a practice game and saw a spark of potential, just like the one he had once seen in himself. It was in those moments that he realized the gym was doing exactly what he had intended. It was more than just a place to work out. It was a place to transform. Jordan was creating a legacy that went beyond basketball. It wasn't about the trophies or the accolades anymore. It was about giving people the tools to reach their potential. It was about building something that would help others rise above their circumstances, just like he had. As the gym continued to grow, Jordan knew this was only the beginning. He had built something special, and it wasn't going to stop here. The real challenge was making sure that it continued to thrive, that the culture he had instilled remained strong as it evolved. But Michael Jordan was used to challenges. And this time, the challenge was bigger than a game. It was about shaping the next generation, helping them rise to the occasion, just as he had done throughout his career. As the weeks passed, the gym continued to grow, and so did Michael Jordan's vision. What had started as a personal challenge, an act of defiance against a staffer who had underestimated him, was becoming something far greater than he could have imagined. The building, the culture, the athletes who trained there, all of it was evolving. Jordan wasn't just running a gym anymore, he was running an institution. He saw athletes coming in, not just from the local area, but from across the country, eager to work with the best. They came to learn, to grow, to be pushed to their limits. But with success came new challenges. Jordan quickly realized that running the gym wasn't as simple as just bringing in talent. The system needed to be structured. It needed to have systems in place for everything, from how athletes were selected for training programs to the way the gym was managed. Jordan had always been able to excel on the court by trusting his instincts and his relentless drive, but this was a new world. The business side of the gym required as much attention as the training. He hired new managers, more skilled trainers, and brought in other mentors who had proven themselves in their fields. But Jordan was still heavily involved. He wasn't just a figurehead, he was there, in the trenches, pushing the athletes, working on drills with them, giving feedback. His approach was simple but effective. He wanted to create a culture where effort was everything, where results didn't come from talent alone, but from dedication. He demanded consistency, focus, and discipline from everyone who walked through those doors. A few months into running the gym, Jordan took stock of everything that had changed. He stood in the center of the basketball court, watching athletes practice their shots, some of them NBA hopefuls, others just trying to improve their skills. It was a humbling moment. He had wanted to make an impact, but seeing it in action was something else entirely. The gym had become a place where athletes weren't just learning the game, they were learning life lessons. The competitive atmosphere wasn't toxic, it was motivating. Each player, no matter their skill level, was pushing themselves to be better. And Jordan saw that every day. One of the biggest changes came with the young staffer who had kicked him out that first day. After Jordan had taken ownership of the gym, the staffer had been faced with an important decision. He could either leave, knowing he'd made a monumental mistake, or he could stay and learn from the man he had once dismissed so quickly. Jordan, in a rare act of forgiveness, offered him a chance to stay on, albeit in a new capacity. The young staffer now worked under one of the gym's managers, helping with the day-to-day operations. His role wasn't glamorous, but it was important. He had to work hard to earn the trust of Jordan, and that was exactly what he set out to do. As weeks turned into months, the staffer's transformation was undeniable. He stopped acting like the rebellious, cocky employee who had once seen Jordan as just another rich guy trying to get a spot at the gym. Instead, he became a quiet presence in the gym, someone who didn't just serve as a reminder of Jordan's vision but as proof that second chances were real and that even mistakes could turn into growth. The gym itself had grown exponentially. Memberships were up, and athletes from all over came to train under Jordan's name. The mentorship program Jordan had started was in full swing, with many young players eager to prove themselves. The gym became known not only as a place for elite athletes to train but as a place where anyone, regardless of their background or skill level, could learn the values of hard work, discipline, and persistence. Jordan had managed to create a space where talent was nurtured, not just on the court, but off it as well. But Jordan wasn't just concerned with the physical aspects of basketball. He believed that the mental game was just as important, if not more so. Many athletes, whether they were young kids or seasoned professionals, faced mental barriers that kept them from reaching their full potential. It wasn't just about being fast or strong, it was about confidence, focus, and the ability to rise to the occasion when the pressure was at its highest. He made sure that the gym's programs focused on mental conditioning as much as physical. Jordan also focused on teaching resilience. He would tell the young players who came to train, "You don't learn from winning, you learn from losing. It's about how you bounce back. It's about how you deal with failure." That was something Jordan knew all too well. He had faced countless defeats in his career, moments where everything seemed to fall apart. But he had always come back stronger. It wasn't about never failing, it was about how you responded. And he made sure that every athlete in his gym understood that. The gym became a place for real, raw growth. Jordan wasn't interested in fluff or empty promises. If someone wanted to be great, they had to earn it. If they weren't willing to put in the work, they weren't going to succeed under his roof. Jordan had built this place, and he wasn't going to let it be diluted by half-hearted efforts. His standards were high. They always had been. The impact of the gym extended beyond the basketball court. In his private moments, Jordan found himself reflecting on how much of his life had been shaped by the lessons he had learned from basketball. From dealing with the media, the fans, and the pressure of constantly being in the spotlight, Jordan had learned to use those pressures to fuel his success. Now, he was teaching the next generation to use their own struggles and challenges as fuel to push themselves further. One afternoon, a player who had been training at the gym for a few months came to speak to Jordan. The player was a 19-year-old guard who had dreams of playing professionally but had struggled with self-doubt. He was talented, but his lack of confidence was holding him back. Jordan had noticed the hesitation in his game during drills, the way he sometimes avoided taking the big shot when the opportunity was there. This player had potential, but he needed to believe in himself. Jordan took a seat on one of the benches near the court and motioned for the player to join him. The young man was nervous, but Jordan just smiled at him, offering a reassuring look. "Tell me what's going on," Jordan said. The player hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure of how to put his feelings into words. I don't know if I'm good enough. I've always been scared of failing." Jordan nodded slowly. "I get that. I've been there. But here's the thing, you can't be afraid of failure. It's a part of the process. You're going to fail over and over again. The question is, are you going to get back up? Because that's what it's about. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be persistent. And you need to believe that you can do it." The young player listened intently, taking in every word. "Don't let your fear control you," Jordan continued. "The best players in the world, people like me, they don't get there by being perfect. They get there by refusing to give up. They get there by outworking everyone else, by learning from every failure and coming back stronger." The conversation lasted for about an hour, and when the young player left, there was a different energy in his step. Jordan had seen the shift before. It wasn't always about the drills or the physical training. Sometimes, all it took was a little bit of belief. And that was something he could give. That evening, as Jordan watched the players on the court from the sidelines, he realized that the gym had become more than just a space for training, it had become a space for transformation. Athletes weren't just becoming better basketball players. They were becoming better people. And that was a legacy Jordan could be proud of. As he walked out of the gym that night, Jordan looked back at the building, knowing that he had created something that would last. Not just for him, but for everyone who stepped through those doors with a dream. The gym wasn't just his, it was theirs. And as long as it existed, the spirit of hard work, resilience, and dedication would live on. The gym had taken on a life of its own, evolving into a cornerstone of the local sports community. Michael Jordan had never been one to rest on his laurels. While others celebrated the success of his gym, he was already thinking ahead, planning the next steps. The transformation had gone from personal redemption to a full-blown institution. But as satisfying as the progress had been, Jordan knew it was still early in the journey. There was a sense of fulfillment in seeing the athletes who had walked into the gym months ago, uncertain and unpolished, now playing with confidence, pushing their limits in ways Jordan had hoped. The young man who had once doubted his ability, the one who had spoken to Jordan about his fear of failure, had become one of the gym's most dedicated trainees. Jordan could see the change in his game, fewer hesitations, more aggressive play. That was the beauty of this place. It wasn't just about the physicality of sports, but about reshaping the minds of those who walked through the doors. Jordan's vision had always extended beyond his own legacy. The gym, in many ways, was an extension of everything he had learned throughout his career. The struggles, the failures, the comebacks, he had faced them all, and now he was teaching others to rise above their obstacles. But as the gym flourished, Jordan knew it wasn't just about being the place people came to train, it had to be a hub for creating real opportunity. One afternoon, after another grueling training session, Jordan sat with his team of trainers and managers to discuss the future. The gym was at a crossroads. They had cultivated talent, and the reputation was growing, but the next step had to be carefully planned. Expansion was an obvious consideration, but Jordan wasn't just interested in opening more gyms. He wanted to leave behind a legacy that transcended physical space. He wanted to build something that would remain long after the building itself faded into memory. "This isn't just about training athletes," Jordan said, his voice steady but carrying the weight of years of experience. "It's about building people. We're giving them the foundation to be successful in whatever they do, whether they make it in the NBA or not. This place has to be about more than just basketball. It has to be about the mindset. The same mindset I took with me to every game. We teach them how to compete with themselves, how to strive for excellence, even when no one's watching." The trainers nodded in agreement. They had seen it firsthand, the players who came into the gym with raw talent and left with the kind of determination that changed not only their game but their lives. Jordan's impact was undeniable. He had inspired an entire generation of athletes, but he wasn't ready to rest on his laurels. He wanted more. There was another meeting scheduled with a potential sponsor that afternoon, but Jordan's mind wasn't entirely focused on that. He wanted something deeper, something that would have lasting power beyond brand endorsements. After the meeting, he decided to take a walk around the gym again. He liked the way it felt when the place was full of energy, the rhythmic pounding of basketballs, the sound of sneakers against the court. But today, there was a different vibe in the air. The gym wasn't just about pushing athletes to their limits, it had become a community. It had become a place where athletes, young and old, came together to grow, support each other, and learn. Jordan was talking to a few of the trainers when he spotted the young staffer, the one who had first kicked him out. Now, that young man was different. He had put in the work, earned his place, and become one of the key players in shaping the culture of the gym. Jordan had always believed in second chances, but this was something else. This wasn't just redemption, this was transformation. The staffer had taken Jordan's words to heart, and he had earned his spot, not just through physical effort, but through understanding the value of the gym's mission. Jordan watched him for a while, silently observing the way he worked with the newer athletes, providing guidance and encouragement. This wasn't just a job for the young staffer, it was a personal mission. Jordan saw how the younger man now interacted with the athletes, how he encouraged them to push past their limits, just as he had been pushed. There was no trace of the arrogance that had marked him when he had first met Jordan. In its place was humility, focus, and a drive to be better. Later, after the meeting with the sponsor, Jordan called the young staffer into his office. The staffer entered nervously, unsure of what Jordan wanted. But Jordan's face was calm, his expression serious but welcoming. "I've been watching you," Jordan began. "I've seen the way you've worked with the athletes. You've come a long way from the guy who kicked me out of the gym." The staffer looked down, slightly embarrassed, but he didn't say anything. He knew the conversation was coming. He had learned from his mistakes, and he knew that Jordan wasn't one to forget easily. "I'm giving you more responsibility around here," Jordan continued. "You've earned it. Not just because you've worked hard, but because you've shown that you understand the culture we're building. I'm going to need people like you to help manage the growth that's coming. This place needs leaders. It needs people who understand what it takes to make this gym more than just a business. It needs people who know how to inspire the next generation." The staffer looked up, his face a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "I won't let you down, sir." Jordan smiled, nodding slowly. "I know you won't. Now get back to work." As the staffer left the office, Jordan leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Giving someone a second chance wasn't always easy, but in this case, it had been the right decision. The gym wasn't just a place for athletes to train, it was a place for growth, for learning, for evolving as people. And if that meant helping someone learn from their mistakes, then that was just as important as the basketball skills they were developing. The next challenge was looming, and it wasn't just about the gym anymore. Jordan had built something that had the potential to affect not just the local community, but the entire basketball world. He knew the influence he had, the power his name carried. It wasn't just about the wins anymore, it was about shaping the future of the sport, of inspiring the next generation of players, whether they went on to play professionally or not. Jordan's plan was taking shape. The gym was already attracting elite players, young talent, and professionals looking to refine their skills. But now, Jordan wanted to bring in younger kids, those who hadn't yet discovered their potential. He wanted to give them the tools, the mindset, and the opportunities to rise above their circumstances. He wanted to create the next wave of basketball stars, yes, but more importantly, he wanted to build people who knew how to overcome challenges, how to push past their limitations, how to be relentless in the face of adversity. It wasn't going to be easy. Jordan had already seen the resistance, the pushback from people who didn't understand his vision. But that was nothing new to him. He had faced doubt his whole career. He had always been told he wasn't good enough, that he wouldn't make it. And yet here he was, having achieved more than anyone could have imagined. The gym was just another extension of that journey. It was another challenge, another opportunity to prove that he could do things no one else dared to dream. As the months went on, Jordan's presence continued to shape the gym. He wasn't just a figurehead, he was there, day in and day out, pushing everyone to be better. His passion for the game, for the process, became infectious. The gym was no longer just a place to work out. It was a symbol of what hard work, persistence, and dedication could accomplish. And that was the legacy he was creating, one where the next generation of athletes would learn not just how to play the game, but how to live their lives with the same drive and focus that had made Michael Jordan a legend. The gym had evolved from a modest facility into a well-oiled machine under Michael Jordan's leadership. As its owner, he had carefully curated a team of dedicated trainers and staff who shared his vision of excellence. The athletes who walked through the gym doors were no longer just clients, they were a part of a larger mission, one that Jordan had instilled in everyone who worked there. It was about more than physical training, it was about creating the mindset of a champion. Jordan's philosophy had taken root, and the culture was shifting, not only for the athletes, but for the people who worked with them. One afternoon, Jordan sat in the manager's office with his team. The room was filled with quiet intensity. They were discussing the future of the gym, and more specifically, how to sustain the growth and success they had achieved over the last few months. Jordan leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk, his gaze focused as he listened to the ideas being thrown out. "We've reached a point where we're seeing great results," the gym manager said. "But we need to keep growing, bring in more people, and expand our programs if we want to keep up with the demand." Jordan nodded thoughtfully. "I agree. But we also need to make sure we're not losing sight of what we've built. It's easy to get caught up in scaling too quickly. We need to be strategic." The room was quiet for a moment as the team processed his words. Jordan wasn't wrong. The gym had gone from a place of personal redemption for him to a thriving hub for athletes of all levels. But growth, especially growth that came as fast as this, needed to be measured carefully. They had to ensure that the culture they had worked so hard to establish remained intact as they expanded. "I think we need to focus on mentorship programs," Jordan said, his voice steady but full of purpose. "We need to bring in athletes who have potential, not just the elite players. Let's find the raw talent and develop it. And we need to teach them not just the game, but the discipline and mentality it takes to be successful." He looked around the room, making eye contact with each member of his team. "We're not just training athletes here. We're building people. We've got a chance to impact a lot of lives, and that's something we can't lose sight of." The team nodded, understanding the direction Jordan wanted to take. They had always been focused on skill development, but now the emphasis was on character, discipline, and mental toughness. It wasn't just about making athletes better on the court, it was about making them better people. That afternoon, Jordan went for a walk around the gym to see firsthand how things were progressing. He passed by the basketball court, where young athletes were running drills, their focus intense, their movements sharp. He smiled as he watched a group of teenagers practicing their shooting form. They were hungry for success, pushing each other to improve. The young staffer who had been there when Jordan first bought the gym was now one of the lead trainers. His growth had been remarkable, and Jordan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as he watched the young man coach the group. The staffer had come a long way from the day he had kicked Jordan out of the gym. Now, he was one of the key figures in shaping the gym's culture, instilling the same work ethic and values that Jordan had worked so hard to impart. Jordan stopped for a moment and observed. It was clear that the gym had become more than just a training facility, it was a place where dreams were being realized. There were kids here who had never had the chance to train with top-level coaches, to be mentored by professionals. There were athletes from all backgrounds, from local high school players to those hoping to make it to the pros, all working toward the same goal. And Michael Jordan was the one driving that vision. The gym wasn't just a business, it was a mission. Jordan wasn't interested in being just another wealthy businessman with his name on a building. He wanted to make a difference. And as he looked at the athletes around him, he realized that he had already started to do that. One evening, Jordan sat in his office, reviewing reports on the gym's growth, when a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He looked up to see the young staffer standing in the doorway. "Got a minute?" the staffer asked. "Of course," Jordan replied, motioning for him to sit. The staffer hesitated for a moment before sitting down. "I've been thinking a lot about the direction we're going. I know we're building something special here, but I feel like we could do more. We're focusing a lot on training and mentorship, but what if we also opened up some scholarships for underprivileged kids? What if we could help give them a chance they wouldn't have otherwise?" Jordan leaned back in his chair, taking in the staffer's suggestion. It was exactly the kind of thinking he had hoped for, a willingness to push boundaries, to think beyond the norm. Jordan had always believed in giving back, but this idea took it a step further. "You're right," Jordan said, his voice thoughtful. "We've got the platform to do something more. Let's do it." From that moment, the scholarship program was born. The gym would offer scholarships to kids who showed promise, but didn't have the financial means to train at the gym. It was a way for Jordan to give back to the community and ensure that the opportunities at the gym were accessible to everyone, not just those with deep pockets. As the weeks passed, the scholarship program gained momentum. Athletes who had once thought their dreams of playing basketball at a high level were out of reach now had a chance to train with the best. The program not only brought in new talent, but it also strengthened the sense of community within the gym. Athletes from different backgrounds, with different stories, now found common ground in their shared goal of improving their skills and working toward their dreams. Jordan watched the program evolve with a sense of pride. This was what he had wanted, to build something that wasn't just about basketball, but about giving people the tools to succeed in life, no matter where they started. The scholarship program was the perfect way to ensure that no one was left behind, that the gym wasn't just a space for the privileged, but for anyone willing to put in the work. One day, Jordan decided to visit a local high school to speak to a group of students about his journey, about the importance of hard work and perseverance. It was something he had done a few times before, but this time felt different. The students listened intently as Jordan spoke about his career, the highs, the lows, the setbacks, and the victories. He told them about the sacrifices he had made, about the challenges he had faced, and about how he had learned to use failure as fuel to keep going. He spoke about the gym and the scholarships, about how they were opening up opportunities for kids who might not otherwise have had a chance. He encouraged them to never let anyone tell them they couldn't achieve their dreams, because they were capable of more than they realized. As he finished speaking, one of the students stood up and asked, "Mr. Jordan, do you ever doubt yourself? Do you ever feel like you're not good enough?" Jordan smiled, the question striking the familiar chord. "All the time," he said. "But what separates the people who make it from the people who don't is what you do with that doubt. You can either let it hold you back, or you can use it to push yourself harder. Doubt is just another challenge to overcome." The room fell silent as the students absorbed his words. Jordan could see the shift in their expressions. The seeds had been planted. They would remember this day, the day Michael Jordan had come to their school, not just as a legend, but as a reminder that success didn't come easily. It came with grit, determination, and an unwavering belief in yourself. As he left the school, Jordan felt a sense of satisfaction. The gym, the scholarships, the athletes, it was all coming together in ways he had never expected. His mission was far from over, but every day he spent in the gym, every athlete he helped, was a step closer to the legacy he had always envisioned. It wasn't just about basketball. It was about creating opportunities, building people, and leaving a lasting impact on the world. The gym had become something more than Michael Jordan had ever imagined. When he first bought the building, it had been about setting things right, proving a point, and taking control of a situation that had humiliated him. But now, it had turned into something deeply personal, something that reflected his career, his struggles, and his growth. Every day, as the gym filled with athletes, trainers, and mentors, Jordan was reminded that his impact was bigger than basketball. There were moments when he stepped back and watched the hustle of it all, young players running drills, high school prospects soaking in advice, professionals perfecting their craft. Jordan never wanted to be the type of person who was all talk, who just showed up when it was convenient. He wasn't a figurehead, he was part of the process, working alongside the athletes who came to train. But in some ways, that personal involvement was starting to feel like more of a challenge. He didn't want to just give speeches or advice, he wanted to create something sustainable, something that would outlast him. The gym's success had brought its own complications. With the growing attention and the increasing number of athletes coming through the doors, Jordan had to begin thinking about structure. He had to find ways to scale the business without losing the integrity of the vision he had created. It wasn't just about having the best facilities or the most talented athletes, it was about making sure the culture of hard work and discipline didn't fade as more people became involved. Jordan sat in his office, the weight of the decision on his mind. He had been approached by investors, corporate sponsors, and media outlets eager to partner with him. On the surface, it was a dream scenario. The gym had become a sought-after destination, and there were people willing to pour money into it. But Jordan wasn't just interested in profits. He wasn't interested in building an empire for the sake of it. He wanted something deeper, something more meaningful. The gym wasn't just a gym, it was a community. It was a place where people could come to improve themselves, to learn, and to grow. That was the core of everything. His thoughts were interrupted when his phone buzzed. A message from the gym's lead trainer. "We've got some new athletes coming in next week. High-level prospects from overseas." Jordan's mind immediately shifted. New athletes were always exciting, but there was more to consider now. As the gym grew, so did the expectations. He was no longer dealing with just local talent. He was building something that could reach far beyond his hometown, attracting athletes from all over the world. The idea of bringing in international prospects was both exciting and daunting. It meant that the gym was becoming a hub, not just for athletes, but for international training and exposure. It meant more opportunities to create lasting relationships with some of the best talent in the world. But it also meant making sure that the standards he had set didn't get watered down in the process. That afternoon, Jordan attended a meeting with his managers and trainers. They discussed the influx of international athletes, the new programs they could implement, and the challenges that came with scaling the gym to meet the demands. There were opportunities to expand, to bring in new partners, to create partnerships with teams and sponsors. But again, Jordan was cautious. "We've built something special here," Jordan said, leaning forward in his chair. "And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to water down what we've done for the sake of making it bigger. It's not about numbers. It's about the quality of what we're putting out into the world." The room was silent for a moment. The team knew what Jordan meant. There was something unique about the gym, something raw and real. It wasn't just a space where athletes trained, it was a place where they transformed, where they built the mental and physical toughness to succeed. But that meant they had to make decisions that prioritized the culture they were building. More clients meant more resources, more trainers, and possibly more exposure. But at what cost? As the meeting continued, Jordan reflected on his own journey. He had come from nothing, from being cut from his high school team to becoming one of the most successful and influential athletes in the world. He had always been the underdog, always fighting against the odds. But he had learned early on that success wasn't just about physical talent, it was about the willingness to outwork everyone else, to push through the tough times, and to have the mentality that no one was going to outlast him. His eyes focused back on the group of trainers and managers, their faces eager but slightly concerned. They understood the responsibility they had, but it was clear that the pressure to grow and expand was beginning to take its toll. Jordan couldn't let the gym become a factory. He needed to maintain the integrity of what they had started. This wasn't just about money. It was about creating a lasting impact. "I know we're all excited about the future," Jordan said. "But remember why we're here. We're not just a gym. We're a place for transformation. That's what separates us from everything else. We have to keep that at the forefront, no matter how big we get." As the meeting wrapped up, Jordan felt a renewed sense of focus. It wasn't about how many athletes they brought in or how much money they made. It was about staying true to the values that had gotten them to this point. The gym wasn't just a business, it was a part of his legacy. He had built something that would outlast his career, that would leave a lasting mark on the sport. And that meant ensuring that the culture didn't shift, that the focus on mental and physical excellence remained at the heart of everything they did. The following weeks were a blur of new athletes arriving, new training programs being implemented, and the gym continuing to grow. Jordan had managed to balance the expansion with the integrity of the gym's mission. More international athletes came through the doors, bringing with them fresh energy, new ideas, and a renewed sense of competition. It was everything Jordan had hoped for. The gym was becoming more than just a place to train, it was becoming a global hub for basketball development. But even with the growth, Jordan never lost sight of the core values. He continued to train alongside the athletes, to give them the same level of attention and discipline he had always expected from himself. His presence in the gym wasn't about grand gestures, it was about setting an example. Every day, he showed up, worked harder than anyone else, and demanded excellence, not just from the athletes, but from the people who worked with him. As the gym's reputation grew, Jordan started to receive invitations to speak at conferences and work with high-level athletes around the world. He knew that his influence extended far beyond the gym's walls, but he remained focused on the task at hand. The athletes who came through his gym weren't just learning basketball skills, they were learning life skills. And that was what mattered most. One day, as Jordan watched a group of young athletes running drills on the court, he felt a sense of pride wash over him. The gym was more than just a business. It was a community, a place where people could come to discover their potential. He had created a space where athletes could learn not only how to play the game but how to live it. And in doing so, he had created a legacy that would stand the test of time. The gym had become his second home, and the athletes who trained there had become his family. They all shared one common bond, the drive to be the best version of themselves. And as Jordan looked around the gym, he knew that his journey was far from over. There was still more work to do, more athletes to help, and more lives to change. But for now, he could take a moment to appreciate what he had built, a place that wasn't just a gym, but a testament to the power of hard work, dedication, and resilience. As the gym continued to grow, Michael Jordan found himself at a crossroads. What had started as a personal challenge, a defiant response to being kicked out of a facility, had evolved into something far more impactful. The gym was no longer just a place for athletes to train, it had become a beacon for anyone wanting to push beyond their limits, and Jordan was fully immersed in the process. But now, the question of what came next lingered in his mind. The gym had become a thriving space for athletes of all kinds. The mentorship programs had flourished, the scholarship opportunities had opened doors for young talent, and the culture of the gym had become a model for how hard work, discipline, and commitment could lead to transformation. Jordan knew that if they were going to continue to grow, they would need to maintain the integrity of the vision, while also adapting to meet new challenges. The gym was on the map now. It wasn't just an ordinary place to train, it had become a destination. Word had spread across the country, and international athletes were beginning to arrive, eager to work with the best. With this expansion came a new set of decisions for Jordan. He could feel the pressure mounting. The desire to scale, to grow, to become a true global brand was tempting, but Jordan knew that pushing too fast could come with risks. He began to think about the bigger picture. The gym was a representation of his entire career, the relentless pursuit of greatness, the unyielding desire to outwork everyone around him. But now, it wasn't just about basketball. It was about creating opportunities for the next generation, about teaching them the values that had guided him throughout his life. He wanted to build something that would stand the test of time, something that would be a place of transformation for years to come. Jordan's thoughts shifted toward the future of the gym. How could he ensure that the culture remained intact as it grew? How could he make sure that the values of hard work and discipline stayed at the core of the gym's philosophy, even as the brand expanded beyond its initial scope? He sat down with his team, the core group of trainers and managers who had helped him build the gym from the ground up. They were the ones who had taken his vision and turned it into a reality. Jordan trusted them implicitly, and together, they had created something that had started as a small personal project and turned into a symbol of excellence. Now, they had to think about the next phase. "We've done a great job up until now," Jordan began, his voice steady, but his eyes focused. "But we can't stop here. We have to keep pushing. We've built something solid, but we have to take it to the next level without losing what made it special." The room was silent for a moment as everyone absorbed his words. The trainers and managers knew exactly what he meant. Jordan had always been a relentless competitor. He wasn't satisfied with simply achieving success, he wanted to build something that lasted, something that could leave an indelible mark on the world. "We need to make sure that the athletes who come here are getting more than just a place to train," Jordan continued. "We need to offer them something that goes beyond the physical. We have to continue to develop their minds, their focus, their resilience. It's about teaching them how to handle failure, how to bounce back when things aren't going right." The trainers nodded. They had seen it firsthand, the players who came in with raw talent but struggled to take their game to the next level because they didn't have the mental toughness to handle adversity. Jordan wasn't just talking about physical skill, he was talking about character, about the mental side of the game. And that, more than anything else, was what Jordan believed set the greats apart from the rest. "Let's expand our programs," Jordan said, his voice growing more determined. "We need to reach more athletes, but we also need to be more selective. We can't just train anyone, we need to work with the ones who are truly willing to put in the work, who understand what it takes to be great." His words hung in the air. There was a shift in the room, a shared understanding. This wasn't just about increasing the gym's membership or making it a big-name brand. It was about building a community of athletes who weren't just talented, but who understood the true value of effort, discipline, and perseverance. Over the next few months, Jordan and his team began to implement changes to ensure that the gym maintained its core values. They introduced new training regimens focused on mental toughness, offering athletes not just drills, but strategies for overcoming the mental barriers that often held them back. They also created programs that emphasized the importance of giving back to the community, teaching athletes the value of mentorship and leadership. Jordan continued to stay involved with every aspect of the gym. He wasn't just making decisions from a distance, he was on the floor, working with the athletes, pushing them to be better, just as he had done for so many years. His approach hadn't changed, it was still about leading by example. And it was paying off. The gym's reputation had reached new heights, and athletes who had once been intimidated by the idea of training alongside a legend were now inspired by his work ethic and dedication. But Jordan's success didn't just come from the gym itself. As word spread about his mentorship programs and the impact the gym was having on athletes, he was asked to speak at conferences, workshops, and charity events. He was becoming more than just a basketball icon, he was a symbol of resilience, leadership, and the pursuit of excellence. One evening, as Jordan sat in the gym watching a group of high school players run through drills, he felt a sense of pride that he hadn't experienced in a long time. It wasn't about the fame, or the recognition, or the accolades. It was about seeing these young athletes working harder than ever before, pushing themselves beyond their limits, just as he had done when he was their age. They were training not just for the next game, but for their future, just as he had done. The gym had become more than just a training space. It was a community of like-minded individuals, all working toward a common goal, to be the best they could be, not just on the court, but in every aspect of their lives. And in that moment, Jordan realized that he had achieved something much bigger than he had ever imagined. He had built a legacy, not just for himself, but for the countless athletes who would come through those doors and walk away with the mindset to succeed, no matter what their dreams were. As Jordan walked out of the gym that night, he looked around at the building that had once been just a place to train, a space to get back at a staffer who had doubted him. Now, it was so much more. It was a place of transformation. A place where hard work and discipline were celebrated. And he knew that this was only the beginning. The gym was just one part of the legacy he was creating, a legacy that went beyond basketball and would continue to inspire for generations to come. There was more to do, more athletes to reach, and more lessons to teach. Jordan wasn't done yet. But as he stood there, looking at the gym he had built from the ground up, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. He had created something real, something that would outlast him and continue to inspire those who were willing to put in the work. That was his true legacy. The gym had become a staple in the basketball community, with its influence reaching far beyond its original scope. Michael Jordan had created something truly extraordinary, an institution that not only trained athletes but built character. It was a place that had come to represent everything he believed in: resilience, discipline, and the unrelenting pursuit of greatness. What started as a personal vendetta had transformed into something far bigger than Jordan could have ever imagined. It wasn't just a gym anymore, it was a legacy in motion. As the months passed, Jordan's involvement only grew deeper. He wasn't just the owner, he was the heartbeat of the place. He had made it his mission to lead by example, and in doing so, he had earned the respect and admiration of everyone who walked through those doors. Whether it was high school players dreaming of a scholarship or seasoned professionals looking to refine their skills, the gym had become a place where anyone could come to elevate themselves. But as successful as the gym had been, Jordan still knew there was more to be done. There was always more. He stood at the front of the gym one evening, watching as athletes practiced their drills and pushed each other to be better. The sound of sneakers on the court, the rhythmic bouncing of basketballs, the occasional cheers of encouragement, it all felt so familiar. It reminded him of his own journey, of the countless hours spent in gyms just like this, with no guarantee of success, no certainty of where it would lead. But one thing had always been clear to him: hard work and dedication would take him further than anything else. Jordan smiled as a young player walked up to him, clearly eager for some advice. It wasn't unusual. Jordan was constantly approached by athletes seeking guidance, whether they were just starting their careers or already seasoned professionals. The young player had a nervous excitement in his eyes, and Jordan could sense that familiar hunger for improvement. "Hey, Mr. Jordan," the player began hesitantly, "I've been working on my game, but I keep getting stuck in my head during big moments." How do you handle the pressure when it's all on the line? Jordan didn't hesitate. He had answered this question countless times throughout his career, but it never felt rote. Each time, the response came from experience, his experience. You're always going to feel the pressure, Jordan said, his voice steady and calm. The key is learning to embrace it. Don't try to push it away or avoid it. Use it. Pressure means you're in a position to succeed. The more pressure you feel, the closer you are to achieving something big. The player nodded, absorbing the words, and Jordan could see the shift in his confidence. It wasn't just the advice itself, it was the belief behind it. Jordan had lived through every kind of pressure imaginable, and he had learned to thrive in it. That wasn't just something he could teach with words, it was something that had to be understood from the inside out. And that was the essence of the gym he had built. It wasn't just about drills and routines, it was about teaching athletes how to control their minds, to keep pushing even when everything seemed stacked against them. Over the next few weeks, Jordan continued to refine the gym's vision. The scholarship program had expanded, and they were seeing young talent from across the country arriving to train. The mentorship programs were thriving, and the gym had become a place where people didn't just come to train, they came to learn how to rise. They came to work not just on their physical game, but on the mental toughness that would carry them through every challenge they faced. One evening, after another long day of training, Jordan sat alone in his office, reflecting on the journey. He had seen this place go from nothing to a thriving hub for athletes of all kinds. He had watched young players who once struggled with their confidence become leaders on the court, helping guide the next generation. And he had seen the gym's culture take root, with a focus on hard work, self-discipline, and community. There was a knock at the door, and Jordan looked up to see the young staffer, the one who had once kicked him out of the gym, standing in the doorway. He had become one of Jordan's most trusted trainers and mentors, someone who had learned the value of hard work and humility through his own experience. "Got a minute?" the staffer asked, his voice calm, but with a hint of nervousness. "Of course," Jordan replied with a welcoming smile. The staffer stepped inside and took a seat. "I just wanted to thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "I've learned so much from you, not just about basketball, but about life. I never thought I'd be here, doing what I'm doing now. You've taught me what it really means to lead, to build something bigger than myself." Jordan leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady but warm. "You've earned everything you've gotten," he said. "It's been incredible to watch you grow. But remember, it's not just about the game, it's about who you are when you step off the court. It's about how you inspire others to do the same." The staffer nodded, clearly moved. "I want to help continue what we've built here. I want to make sure we keep growing, but stay true to the culture. I know we've got big plans, but we can't lose what makes this place different." Jordan's expression softened, and he leaned forward, his tone serious. "I trust you. And that's the key. It's not about one person, it's about the team. You're part of something bigger now. It's your job to make sure that this gym isn't just a place where athletes train. It's a place where they learn how to be the best versions of themselves. That's the legacy we're building." The staffer smiled, the weight of the responsibility settling in. He knew that the gym wasn't just Jordan's, it was theirs now, and it was up to everyone involved to carry the torch forward. Later that night, Jordan left the gym for the last time that week. The city of Miami glittered beneath him as he drove home, but his mind wasn't on the buildings or the lights. It was on the people he had met, the athletes he had mentored, and the countless moments that had shaped this gym into what it had become. He had built something that would outlast him, something that would continue to inspire athletes for years to come. It wasn't just a gym. It was a legacy. As Jordan drove, he realized that everything he had gone through in his life, from the highs to the lows, had led him here. The failures, the struggles, the sacrifices, all of it had shaped the person he had become. And now, that journey was continuing through the gym. It was a place where the next generation of athletes would learn to face their challenges head-on, just as he had done. The gym wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about more than that. It was about teaching people that no matter where they came from, no matter what obstacles they faced, they had the power to rise above it all. And as Michael Jordan reflected on everything he had built, he knew this was the most important legacy of all. It wasn't just about trophies or accolades. It was about the people, the lives changed, and the impact made. The gym would live on, and the lessons would continue to resonate. And that, to Jordan, was the greatest victory of all.